Harper had always considered her life to be steady, predictable, and safe. Living in a small house on the outskirts of Seattle, she liked things simple. Her work as a graphic designer kept her busy. Her evenings were quiet, and her friends knew her as reliable and calm. She was 37, practical and careful with her feelings. After ending a long-term relationship years ago, she had built walls around her heart. She didn't actively seek companionship. She liked her routines and her independence. But that night, as autumn rain drummed against the windows, everything began to shift. It started with a knock at the door. Emily wasn't expecting anyone, but the sound was firm and polite. She opened the door and found Daniel Carter standing there, rain-soaked and slightly awkward. Daniel had moved into the neighborhood 2 years ago after his divorce. He was tall, quiet, with deep blue eyes that often seemed thoughtful and sad. They had been friendly neighbors, exchanging greetings and occasional small talk, but their relationship had always stayed comfortably distant. Yet tonight, standing there in the rain, something about him made Emily pause. "I'm sorry to bother you," Daniel said, his voice careful. "The storm knocked out my power, and I left my phone charger at work. I wasn't sure what to do." He shifted his weight, uncomfortable, wet strands of hair sticking to his forehead. Emily felt a sudden urge to help. She wasn't sure why. She hesitated only briefly before opening the door wider. "You can come in. It's freezing out there." He stepped inside, shaking off his jacket. Emily noticed how tense he seemed, like he wasn't just wet from the rain but also carrying some invisible weight. The warmth of her house, with its faint scent of cinnamon from the candles she had lit earlier, contrasted sharply with the chill outside. For a moment, they both stood quietly, neither speaking, both adjusting to the unexpected intimacy of the moment. Emily made tea while Daniel took a seat at the kitchen counter. Small talk started the way it always did, about the weather, about work, about trivial things in the neighborhood. But slowly, the conversation deepened. Daniel's tone shifted from polite and guarded to honest and reflective. He spoke about his divorce, not with anger, but with a quiet sadness, admitting the loneliness he hadn't wanted to confront until now. Emily listened, sensing the vulnerability beneath his words. She recognized it because she had felt the same. After her own relationship ended, there was a fragile kind of trust forming between them, a sense that they were both cautiously revealing the truths they usually kept hidden as the storm raged outside. Their discussion moved from casual topics to personal stories. Daniel spoke of his childhood, of the dreams he had once held, of the mistakes he regretted. Emily responded with her own memories, some bittersweet, some funny opening parts of herself she usually kept private. Laughter and quiet empathy filled the room. The sound of the rain against the windows became a backdrop to a night that neither of them had expected. Hours passed without them noticing, and what began as a simple act of neighborly kindness turned into a shared experience that felt both intimate and profound at some point. Emily stood to clear the tea mugs. Daniel instinctively reached to help. Their hands brushed for a fleeting moment, but it was enough to awaken a sudden awareness between them. Neither of them had planned it, and it was not inappropriate. Yet the sensation lingered far longer than the physical touch. Emily's heart raced, and she quickly looked away. Daniel, too, seemed surprised by the sudden intensity of emotion in the air. Both of them had felt something they hadn't anticipated, something tender and stirring, the kind of connection that made the heart skip unexpectedly. The storm worsened outside, flooding some parts of the neighborhood and making it clear that Daniel could not leave soon. The power company had warned residents that the outage might last all night, which meant Daniel would remain in Emily's house far longer than either had planned. Instead of discomfort, Emily felt a strange mixture of nervous excitement and calm reassurance. There was a safety in his presence, even as her emotions betrayed the careful composure she usually maintained. She realized that sometimes being alone with someone unexpectedly could uncover feelings long suppressed. "Daniel," sting at the counter seemed to grow more relaxed as the evening wore on. He laughed softly at one of Emily's stories, a real, unguarded laugh that made the room feel warmer. Emily responded in kind, smiling more freely than she had in years. There was a sense of balance in the interaction. Honesty met understanding, curiosity met patience. Every glance, every shared anecdote built a quiet intimacy between them. Their usual neighborly boundaries were slowly dissolving, replaced by something deeper. Something neither wanted to name yet, but both felt intensely. It was not a night of dramatic confessions or sudden declarations of love. There were no grand gestures, only subtle moments that carried weight. A pause in conversation when they realized how deeply they had listened to each other. A laugh that lingered longer than expected. A smile that reached the eyes and not just the lips. Emily noticed how Daniel's eyes softened when he looked at her, the same way her own heart had begun to soften despite years of caution. Time passed quickly, but also strangely slowly. The outside world was chaotic with the storm, but inside Emily's living room, a rare stillness had settled, a quiet cocoon where two people who had been lonely for years could finally connect without pretense. Daniel's vulnerability, Emily's gentle understanding, and the shared awareness of each other's hidden wounds created a bridge neither of them had anticipated at one point. Daniel commented on the length of their conversation, noting that they had talked more in a few hours than most people talked in months. Emily smiled, agreeing, and the remark was met with a brief, warm silence. It was a silence that spoke volumes. Words were no longer necessary because the presence they shared was powerful on its own. The gentle storm outside and the soft glow of candles inside made the evening feel suspended outside of time. Despite the growing closeness, there was no rush. Both Emily and Daniel were aware of the careful line they walked, respect for each other's space and boundaries balanced the undeniable attraction that was simmering quietly beneath the surface. It was as if the universe had conspired to create this moment, forcing them into proximity, offering the rare chance to discover the depth of connection they had been avoiding. Emily's thoughts drifted to the strange thrill of the evening. She considered how ordinary their lives had been, and how unexpected it was to feel such a quiet intensity in someone's presence. There was excitement, yes, but also an underlying peace. For so long she had felt isolated, independent, but alone. Tonight, with Daniel, she felt both alive and comforted, as if a missing part of her had suddenly been acknowledged. Daniel, meanwhile, felt a warmth he hadn't realized he craved. After years of solitude, of trying to mend a broken heart, he was surprised by how easy it felt to open up to Emily. Her empathy, her quiet charm, her attentive presence, all of it drew him in. The night had started with a simple, practical problem, a power outage and a forgotten phone charger. But it had evolved into an experience that neither of them could ignore, rare, almost sacred human connection, sudden and unexpected. The evening wound toward late hours. Emily noticed the tension in the room, not awkward, but electric. Something was changing. Each laugh, each shared memory, each lingering glance built a tension that neither could yet name. Though both were keenly aware of it, the storm outside mirrored the subtle storm of emotions inside. Yet the warmth between them counterbalanced the rain and wind battering the city. When Emily glanced at Daniel, she realized she had been holding her breath. The realization made her heart beat faster, a reminder of the vulnerability she had tried to avoid all these years. Daniel's eyes met hers, and for a brief, suspended moment, both of them felt the same undeniable truth. There was a spark, gentle, but persistent, something neither wanted to push too far, yet couldn't ignore. It was fragile, uncertain, but intensely real. They talked a little more, but even in their words, there was a shared understanding. Words had limits, but the connection between them transcended conversation. Each gesture, the brushing of hands, the shared laughter, the quiet attentiveness spoke volumes. Emily realized that her careful, controlled world had just been cracked open by something unexpected and profoundly human. Daniel realized the same. That connection, empathy, and subtle attraction could appear in the most unlikely situations. The night outside raged on, but inside, a quiet realization settled between them. This unusual situation, an unexpected storm, a lost charger, a knock at the door was exactly the catalyst they needed. Two lives that had been parallel, lonely and careful, suddenly intersected in a way that was intimate, emotionally charged, and quietly romantic. They were not lovers yet. They were not confessing feelings openly. But the evening had opened the door to possibility. And both knew the events of tonight would linger in memory long after the storm had passed. The storm outside had finally begun to ease, leaving streets glistening with rain and the faint smell of wet earth drifting through the quiet Seattle night. Emily Harper sat on the couch, wrapped in a soft blanket, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the candles around her. Across from her, Daniel Carter stood near the window, his hands resting lightly on the sill as he watched the fading storm. The lightning flashes had stopped. The thunder had quieted, but the energy in the room between them had only grown. There was a weight in the air that neither could ignore, a tension that was gentle but undeniable. They had spent hours talking, laughing, and sharing truths about themselves, and now a silence hung over them that was full of meaning. Daniel turned from the window slowly, as if reluctant to break the calm, and looked at Emily. She met his gaze, feeling a flutter of something she hadn't felt in years, a mixture of hope, curiosity, and nervous anticipation. The room felt smaller, more intimate, though they were careful to maintain distance. The storm had forced them into each other's company. But now, with the world outside calm again, the real challenge began. What to do with this connection? You. No, Daniel said quietly, his voice calm but thoughtful. I never imagined a night like this. Emily smiled, her heart softening at the way he spoke. What kind of night? She asked. The kind of night where you realize you've been looking for happiness in the wrong places, he replied. His eyes held hers steadily, no flinching, no hesitation. It was a look that felt honest, full of unspoken emotion. Emily felt her chest tighten. For years, she had convinced herself that she was fine alone, that independence and work were enough. But now, looking into Daniel's eyes, she realized how lonely she had truly been. This wasn't the rush of infatuation. It was the slow, quiet recognition of something real, something gentle, something she wanted to explore. She leaned back slightly on the couch, taking in the quiet room. Her gaze drifted to Daniel, noting the way the candlelight softened the lines of his face. How his expression was a mix of caution and hope. He was careful, aware of boundaries, yet every movement, every glance drew her in. I think life gives us second chances sometimes, she said softly, almost to herself. Daniel nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. I don't know. If I'd call it a second chance, he said, I'd call it a moment. And what we do with moments, that's the choice we make. Those words struck her. She realized that life didn't always give clear directions, that sometimes you were just placed in situations that could lead to something meaningful if you allowed it. Her heart beat a little faster. She knew she wanted to let this moment grow, even if it felt unusual, even if it was unexpected for a while. They sat in silence again, not awkward but comfortable, as if each breath and each glance was part of the conversation they didn't need to speak aloud. Emily felt a warmth spreading through her chest, a sense of calm mixed with anticipation. She realized how rare it was to feel completely understood by someone who wasn't family, someone who wasn't an old friend, someone who wasn't part of her carefully constructed life. Daniel, too, was absorbing the quiet intimacy. He had spent years retreating into solitude, trying to recover from a marriage that had ended with more hurt than closure. But tonight, here with Emily, he felt an unfamiliar comfort, a trust forming that made him want to stay, even if just for a little while longer. Eventually, Daniel moved to sit on the couch opposite Emily, leaving a respectful space between them. The moment felt deliberate, measured, and honest. "I hope this doesn't sound strange," he said, his voice soft, "but I've always thought you were remarkable." Emily blinked, surprised. She hadn't expected him to say that, hadn't expected anyone to look at her with such quiet admiration. "Remarkable," she repeated, unsure if she should laugh or just accept the compliment. "Yes," he said, leaning slightly forward. "You're kind, thoughtful, and even when things are chaotic, you make people feel safe. You have a way of calming the storm, not just outside, but inside." The words touched her in a way she hadn't realized she needed. For years, she had been independent, proud of her ability to manage life alone. But hearing someone see the care and warmth she offered quietly, without expecting anything in return, opened a new part of her heart. She realized that connection didn't always arrive in big, dramatic gestures. Sometimes it came quietly, almost imperceptibly, in words spoken softly and eyes that truly saw you. Emily laughed softly, little self-conscious but genuinely moved. "I'm not always calm," she admitted. Daniel smiled, shaking his head. "Maybe not," he said, "but you try. And that matters more than you know." The honesty in his voice made Emily's chest tighten. There was a rhythm building. Between them, a silent understanding, an emotional dance that neither wanted to rush. They had been neighbors, casual friends, acquaintances, but tonight had shifted something fundamental. The walls they had built, her careful boundaries. His guarded heart were softening under the weight of shared understanding and gentle attraction. Outside, the storm had quieted, leaving the streets shining under the reflection of streetlights and puddles. Inside, the candlelight flickered, casting a warm glow on the living room and creating a private, almost sacred space. Daniel's gaze met Emily's again, and she felt the flutter of nerves mixed with excitement. This wasn't about reckless passion. It was about discovery, about recognizing a rare and precious connection that had appeared unexpectedly. Emily spoke quietly, her voice almost a whisper. "Daniel, do you ever feel that life gives us moments we weren't expecting? Moments that might change everything if we let them?" Daniel considered her words, leaning back slightly, and nodded. "Yes," he said after a pause. "I think moments like that are rare. And when they come, you have to decide if you're brave enough to take them." Her heart skipped a beat. She realized she was ready to take this moment to let herself feel something she had denied herself for so long. The fear of vulnerability was there, yes, but it was overshadowed by the pull of connection. By the curiosity and hope growing inside her, they spoke for hours more. About dreams, regret, and the paths their lives had taken. Daniel shared more about his work and his hopes. Emily shared memories of her younger self and the small victories she had achieved in her quiet life. Every story built a bridge between them, a shared understanding that was stronger than any fleeting attraction. They laughed, they sighed, they reflected, and they listened. Each moment was a thread weaving them closer, forming something neither had planned, but both silently desired. At one point, Daniel moved closer, a gesture small and careful. And Emily felt this subtle thrill of proximity. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't rushed. But it was deliberate in the best way, a gentle acknowledgement of the trust and growing intimacy between them. The air in the room felt warmer, charged not with urgency, but with anticipation. Both knew that this night had become more than a coincidence. It was a turning point, a moment that would linger in memory long after the storm had passed. They sat in quiet reflection, the kind of silence that spoke volumes. Emily realized that her heart had opened slightly, enough to feel something tender and hopeful for the first time in years. Daniel, observing her, felt a similar shift, a softening of his own guardedness. It's an awakening of emotions he had thought long buried. The room was filled with unspoken possibilities, and for the first time, both of them considered the chance that this unusual situation, two neighbors caught together by a storm, could lead to something real, something lasting, something quietly beautiful. As the candles flickered low, Daniel stood near the door, preparing to leave. The storm had cleared completely, and the night outside was calm. But inside, the warmth lingered. He turned back to Emily, a hopeful expression in his eyes. "Would it be strange," he asked, "if I knocked on your door again tomorrow? Even if the power is working?" Emily smiled, her heart light and soft. "No," she said, "not strange at all." In that simple exchange, something profound passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of mutual interest. A recognition that life had presented them with an unusual situation and that they were willing to explore it together. Neither of them rushed, neither forced the moment. They simply accepted it, embraced it, allowed themselves to feel the beginnings of a connection that had been dormant for far too long. The night ended quietly, with Daniel stepping into the calm streets. Outside, and Emily watching him go, a gentle anticipation warming her chest. They had crossed the threshold from casual neighbors to two people aware of something new, something precious, something filled with potential. It wasn't a dramatic climax, but a soft, hopeful beginning, a story of emotional awakening, subtle attraction, and the tender possibilities that life sometimes offers when least expected. In the quiet of her home, Emily reflected on the night. She realized that connection could appear in unexpected ways, that loneliness could transform into understanding, that unusual situations could lead to beautiful stories. And Daniel, walking home under the moonlit streets, understood the same truth, that sometimes the heart opens slowly, carefully, but unmistakably when the moment is right. When the walls we build begin to fade, and when we meet someone willing to see us as we truly are.